short lives, hopefully less than 10 to 15 minutes, where I explain how the government is making insurance companies richer the same way they make landlords richer. Sucks, doesn't it? Unless you're an insurance company or a landlord. But first, let me start with, how does the government make landlords richer? And then I will show you correlation, causation, how the government is making insurance companies more money. And people think it is causing insurance companies to pull out of states like California and Florida, and that's not actually what's happening. It just looks that way. The first way that the government makes landlords and insurance companies richer is more regulations. Regulations like rent control, permit processes for building. When you limit supply, you take away the desire for people to be a landlord in an area, you limit supply, which when the demand is already there, now you limit supply, you're going to increase the cost. So how it works with landlords is, just because of the threat of rent control, I'm making over $3,300 more a month this year. Just because it was on the docket as a proposed bill, I went and used my binder strategy because the threat of rent control was existing, and my tenants asked me to raise the rent across the board, cumulatively, a little over $3,300 a month. So thank you, tenants, for asking for your rent to go up. But the reason I did this is because a normal landlord like me, I would raise the rent 5% every other year. But if something like 2020 happens and we have a black swan event and costs go up significantly, I can then adjust rents in the future. But if you take that ability away to where I'm locked into only being able to go a certain amount of rent increase every year, then as a landlord, I am forced to do that amount every year. And in my state, they were threatening 7% a year. So instead of 5% every other year, I would be forced, since I couldn't do any one-time big adjustments in the future, to do the maximum allowable amount of 7% every single year, over doubling what I would be making in a normal cycle of rentals. And if you're in a place where there's rent control, landlords aren't stupid. We have legal options to put the rent wherever we want it. We can say things like, landlords can say this because this is, don't hate the player, hate the game. It is legal to say, you have 90 days to get out, tenant. We're not going to say because your rent's too low. We're going to say because I'm selling the place. Or we're going to say you have 90 days to get out because I'm going to do a rehab. I'm going to completely fix this unit because it is no longer safe until I fix it. Insurance companies can require that we do that. Or we could say, I or a family member is going to move in. You have 90 days to get out. Now we get the tenant out. You put the rents wherever you want, because that is not an increase. That is a new rental amount. Now let's look at exactly what's happening with insurance, because most homeowners and landlords have never looked at it through this lens. Most states, now they might have it titled differently, but my state and most of the states I've lived in or been in have what is called, you're going to have to Google this because GTS is proof, the Office of the Insurance Commissioner, a position your state has that regulates insurance. States with a lot more regulation has less insurance companies willing to operate there. So sometimes they pull out, which limits the supply where there's already demand, because homeowners not only want insurance to protect their asset, and landlords not only want insurance to protect their asset, but your mortgage company is going to require it. So it is something you have to have in most situations. And then we limit the supply with regulations, and prices go up. But the Office of the Insurance Commissioner thinks they're smart. So they put in rules that we'll never know about. If you want approval to have an insurance license to be a company that represents homeowners and businesses in our state, you can only do a certain increase allowable every year. They're putting a cap on increases. What does that sound like? Well, holy crap, that sounds like rent control for companies, where the Office of the Insurance Commissioner, well, they don't control how much your taxes go up in some states, or how much your handyman can start charging, or what your plumber's going to start charging. They'll control how much you can make, but not how much you might need to spend. They're not controlling how much the insurance company has to pay out. They're controlling how much they can make with their premiums. So insurance companies, like landlords, aren't stupid. Go through your list of friends who own properties and ask them this question. In the last 6 months, yes, your insurance might not be allowed to go up more than a certain percent. In some states it's 10, some states it's 20%. But you're going to see a lot more of what I've seen with a very small portfolio. I only have 8 properties and 16 rentals, which is what I was able, well, 16 when I retired in 2022. I've added a duplex since then. But I've had 4, just this year, insurance companies say things like this. We're not renewing your policy on this property. This is the best problem I hope you have at some point in the future. Because the value went up too much and we don't cover properties worth that much. So thank you, Stillwater, for not covering a fourplex that's gained $1 million in value. It's a terrible thing to remind me that real estate's an awesome thing to own. You'll hear things like, we're no longer insuring mobile homes this year. So they're going to cancel. They're not going to cancel. They're just not going to renew. You're going to have companies say, we don't, and I had this, I have a house and a duplex on one property. Company said, we are no longer insuring multiple dwelling units on one property. Hello, people with ADUs. So they cancel. Or, I've had this one too. We're no longer insuring properties that are older than 1960 or 1990. So when they cancel, and you have to go and find a new policy, my insurance premium that was $1,300 at one place goes to $2,700. And I had quotes of $5,200 and $5,100. Those are not increases that the Office of the Insurance Commissioner can hold against the insurance company because those are new policies at a new amount. So our brilliant government, with their regulations that limit supply on a industry with demand, insurance and rentals, makes prices go up. And then our awesome government with policies in place to protect the homeowner so your insurance can't go up more than a certain amount or your rent can't go up more than a certain amount, makes people homeless because the landlords kick them out to get the rents where they need to be. Makes people have a over 100% increase in an industry that's limited to 10 or 20% of an increase because the people who have insurance companies aren't stupid. Correlation versus causation. I am doing these videos a couple of days a week. Normally I only do one, but today I'm doing 2, and let me tell you why. 2 separate videos, so bear with me. If you want to see the next one, where I use a medical study to prove why you need to retire early. That'll be happening like a couple of minutes. It takes me 2 minutes to set up a live after this one. I do long live streams every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific where I answer all the questions about reaching financial freedom, what it's like to be retired early. I retired at 52, been retired about 2 years, coming up next month, and what it's like to invest in real estate. I don't invest in things like stocks or crypto or businesses, but if that's your thing, I know who to send you to. If you're interested in what's going on in the crypto world, I can't believe I can't remember his name because he used to be a guest all the time on One Rental at a Time. And he's in their school community coming up. I'll remember it in the next video, probably. Or if you invest in stocks, I would recommend checking out Joe Kuhn. He retired using stocks, using a version of the 4% rule, which he goes into a lot more detail on. And he used the buckets method to be ready for something like a recession or a pandemic or a prolonged government shutdown. And I think if you're going to be retiring early, you should be checking out the content of people who are going to use the format for doing it that you did. This is a short video where I wanted to explain why you're getting your insurance canceled, why a lot of the insurance companies aren't leaving states. They're just not renewing policies, forcing people to then go get a new quote at 2 or 3 times the cost of what their insurance was, which is not a violation of the Office of the Insurance Commissioner. Kind of like when a landlord just kicks a tenant out if they don't know about the binder strategy, where you can go and just have a 10-minute conversation with your tenant and have them ask you to raise the rent $300 to $500. A couple of the conversations with my last round of the binder strategy, the tenants asked for a $500, and I said, that's a bit much. Why don't we go $300 or why don't we go $350? My goal with my videos is to help at least make you think. Until my next video, which will actually be in just a couple of minutes, on why a medical study is proof that you need to retire early. Thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.